we are absolutely delighted to welcome Vukašin Nedeljkovic, who is one of the artists in this year's TULCA. And as part of his practice, Vukašin explores the plight of asylum seekers and the issue of direct provision in Ireland. So it's a legacy that's been stretching over 20 years. And as part of this, Vukašin has set up the Asylum Archive. I've seen a piece in the artist newsletter in relation to that. He is a PhD student as well, and he has most recently been awarded the Arts and Activism Bursary from the Arts Council. So I think all of this material is being collated and gathered together for a forthcoming publication, which no doubt Vukašin will be telling us about. So I'm absolutely delighted, Vukašin, to welcome you here. And before we let you speak, just a few words just about the protocol. So Vukašin will be talking to us, and then we will have a Q&A session. So if you want to ask a question, there is the chat bar or the opportunity to submit to TULCA those questions, and I will work my way through those after the talk. Okay. So I hope we're all happy enough with that, and I'll hand you over to Vukašin. You're very, very welcome, and thanks for coming along.
Thank you, Gavin. And it is my absolute pleasure and delight to welcome you all here. I think since the beginning of pandemic, this is my first, if I can say, public talk through new platforms or online platforms, and in this case, Zoom. So just please pardon me if there will be any kind of technical issues or difficulties, because I'm kind of not used to this way of communicating and trying to deliver what I would like to say to the audience. So the structure of this talk, and again, very thankful to the curator of this year, TULCA, Sarah Brown, for not only considering and inviting me to take part in visual arts program in this, I would like to say, the most brilliant and beautiful collaboration between Felix Peaks, who is a poet, and Asylum Archive, one of my photographs from Great Western House Direct Provision Centre in Galway, realized and materialized after many, I would like to say, gatekeepers wanted to prevent that happening. It's there in Clada, standing still, and it's testament of what a collaboration can do and what it can mean in terms of really one sentence, what is the aim and the imperative of my work, Asylum Archive, for the last 14 years, and that is to abolish direct provision and stop all deportations. So thanks to TULCA as well, and also very happy to be here today. I would like to structure this talk, or as it's kind of advertised as an artist talk, by me talking less and you talking more, if you like. So I would really like to focus on a Q&A aspect of this particular presentation, because I think this is extremely important. I would like to structure my talk by And I really do hope one thing before I start, that everybody in the audience, everybody that can hear me, uh, knows what direct provision is, or at least heard about direct provision. Uh, I would like to contextualize direct provision for maybe 10 minutes and then move on to what Asylum Archive is by showing you some of the uh, uh, works or the photographs I have done relatively recently. So the Direct Provision Centre or centres or Direct Provision Scheme has been introduced in Ireland in November 1999 to accommodate people seeking protection, international protection, or refugee status in Ireland at the time. And most of those places or direct provision centers are located in buildings that would include convents or army barracks, former hotels, holiday homes. But one of the things that one of the narratives or one of the let's say ideas that the government of Ireland had while initiating this scheme was, and it is materialized, that most of these centers are located outside of the cities at the periphery of the society. And I may have to say that racial or uh, decision was deliberate, and that decision by the government of Ireland at the time, and nothing much have changed from November 1999 to November 2020, to reduce and prevent possible integration or even communication between people seeking asylum and the local community. So we have them there in a totally ghettoized environment. And one of those examples that I always like to mention is my own one. And I came to this island in 2006 seeking protection. And most of my time, which was 3 years, I was living in a small rural town in Ballyhoney's, kind of one street town. But then in that town, on the top of the hill, was the old convent where the nuns used to live. And in that old convent, on the top of the hill, was the Direct Provision Centre, where almost 300 people have lived for many, many years. And if I can say that almost no one or very few people from Ballyhoney's town, which is literally 7 minutes walk down the hill and you turn left, did they know that we lived there? They didn't. We were there behind the trees and the bushes and the gates, and we lived our lives. But many people, most of the people, locals, they didn't know that we were living there, and they didn't know what direct provision is, and they didn't know how much we had to suffer, how much we had to go through, or what we had to go through to be able eventually, if we are lucky and fortunate, to be recognized by the state of Ireland, that our lives may be in danger, or that we may be prosecuted if we ever return back to our original homes or countries of origin. So that was a big shock to me at the time, and I must say that being there and living there for 3 years made me really to think about several aspects of this society, and apart from realizing that I had shared a room with 4 other men, while I was, or I may have been, a victim of the sexual violence, for example, or trauma, or etc. Uh, did really make me very, very uncomfortable. But as I would like to say, is the first day, or the first week, or the first month is the toughest one. And then once when you get over that, it gets easier. No, the circumstances are the same, but you just learn how to cope. You learn how to accept what your present reality is. And after a while, because of the nature of my, mm, one of the reasons why I did seek international protection after almost a year, I was very fortunate to be given a single room, and we're talking about 2007. That the single rooms for men and women existed. Uh, I strongly do believe that they do not exist anymore, or if they exist, it's very, very rare. So I was on the second floor in the old common Ballyhonis, in the room 24, where at some point I realized that I have kind of not only brought my small Olympus 5 megapixel camera, but that I have had education, or my BA in photography from Belgrade University of Arts. And then as the days were passing by, and as we were kind of living in this kind of eternal limbo, endless limbo, totally racialized by the state of Ireland, I kind of decided that it may be a good idea as a coping mechanism, mainly at the time, to start to document what is in my room, what is in my corridor, what is outside of the building, what is it there really? And I did that. And at that moment, when I actually took that camera that my dad made sure that I have in the bag, saying, you don't ever know how it may be helpful or useful to you, my son, I did start taking the photographs, and it was nothing else but click and a click and a click and a click. And that's how the photographs were recorded on Olympus camera. And I didn't know that at the time I was doing something that will, after completing my master's in visual arts practice at the former Mavis in Dunleary Institute of Art and Technology, will become Asylum Archive, which is a 14-year-old initiative platform that I still struggle to put my name forward, although I am the person who have taken over the last 14 years 6,000 plus photographs, many found objects, and recorded many audio interviews, without forgetting one thing, that the collaborative aspect of the Asylum Archive, where I do invite, and I did invite, people who have experienced direct provision to share their visual materials with me still, so we can move from that, if I can say, degrading visual art single approach into something that I always want to have is commons, and stating that this is not my archive and it never will be my archive. This is our archive. This is the archive of the survivors of direct provision, the survivors of the most appalling, dehumanizing, racist system that still exists in Ireland in November 2020. And it doesn't get any better from 2007 when I was there. It actually gets worse and worse and worse. And of course, me and other comrades and colleagues, academics and activists and etc., would like to draw an attention that nothing has much changed in Ireland since the closure of the last Magdalene Laundry in Sean McDermott Street. I believe that was 1997. And if we think we had those 2 years free between 1997 and 1999, when the first direct provision opened, of not incarcerating people, we may be wrong by forgetting the plight and what we have done to the traveller community, what we have done to the prison population, what we have done to people living in the psychiatry institutions, or people having mental health issues or problems. So nothing have changed. We are still here. And as a part of my contribution for one of the publications that will come soon, working very closely with Emily Pine from UCD, I did argue actually, and you may take this differently, that the fallen women at the time, or men as well, in industrial schools and the scandals of mother and baby homes, I think there is one layer, really an extra layer, that people living in direct provision have to cope with, and that layer is the crucial layer. I think that layer is the most important layer, the most unspoken, the most neglected, the most marginalized, especially by the NGO sector in this country, especially by the human rights workers, etc. And that's the layer of deportations. And that's the layer of deportability that a comrade of mine, Dr. Ronit Lentin, writes very eloquently about that. So that's the deportations, right? But the deportations are twofold, right? So we have physical deportations that actually do happen in a huge numbers from this Cade Mila Falci Ireland, but also we're talking about this psychological abuse. We're talking about this endless abuse performed by the government of Ireland, which means that once when you get the deportation order issued by the state, you can be deported anytime legally by the Garda. But deportations don't happen very they may not happen, but it means that you're living in that fear that you can be deported every moment since you get that letter. Deportations are very costly. They're very expensive, but there we go. We always find a solution as a neoliberal society, or as a neoliberal Europe. And once when Ireland did sign an agreement with Frontex, which is an agency based in Warsaw that basically does very simple thing, collects the data from many European countries, or if not all European countries, and try to deport more people as much as they can, if I can say, in less time, okay, being cost effective, or saving the money. So basically, they would work with Ireland, UK, other European countries, and they would say, we have these nationals in these countries, so how many you have, how many I have, okay, so that's it, we have enough for the plane to, for example, deport Nigerians back to via UK back to Lagos. Okay, and that did happen, and perhaps the testaments or the real stories can be found in the accounts, in particular available by amazing work that Anti-Deportation Ireland activists have been doing for many, many years, and absolute kudos to them at the time, collecting all those stories and keeping an eye and making sure that the one of the existence, or the main existence of the direct provision, is deportability. And we really have to kind of think about that. So I will just start now to share screen, and then I will just like to show you a few examples of what I'm trying to say. And this work that you're seeing now is the first part is Asylum Archive. It's a very new work. Most people have not seen it. It's done just at the time of COVID, actually. And when we're talking about COVID or the pandemic, we must not forget this particular center and its Skellig Star Hotel in Kerry that probably got the most attention in the media about how the residents arriving there at the beginning of pandemic were living and treated. You probably may have heard the stories, but we had a case of a resident being diagnosed with the virus, and this is the thing here, right? The thing is here, and this is very, very important. This is one, right? This is one that got media attention. We have many, many other direct provision centers across the country, and we do not know the impact that COVID, in particular, have had on people seeking international protection. It is unspoken, it is not knowing, and me trying, failing, big time failing to do the work or continue with the Asylum Archive and do the research of the impact that COVID had within DP centers, obviously wasn't successful within visual art decision maker, funders, establishment, arts council, blah, 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 blah. So there we are. All we know is some harrowing images, testimonies of people living in that center, where the virus uh, got passed from one person to the other, to the other, to the other, and it became a pandemic. So it became a prison within the prison and the prison and the prison, right? And they were not allowed even to leave the center. So why were they not allowed to leave the center? Because maybe the local community, the white community, were afraid or was afraid that those people can spread the virus to the rest of the village. So they were there incarcerated, living in most appalling conditions. And this is the thing that I would like to highlight. This is a new hotel. Not new, but it's in a good nick hotel compared to other DP centers. But that's not the point. The point is definitely not that, especially since the initiation of emergency accommodation centers, another anomaly or the continuation of direct provision where asylum seekers can live in Ballsbridge Hotel, where the night can be €100 plus if you're a tourist, or Esplanade Hotel in Bray, or Maldron Hotel in Parnell Square, but we don't know. And the most problematic thing here is the Department of Justice doesn't give the addresses or the locations of these emergency accommodation centers. And let us not forget Tracy's Hotel. Let us not forget Tracy's Hotel in Monaghan. I believe one of those, if not one of the famous, but one of those most famous, but one of those famous places where the white Irish weddings are taking part. And then apparently owner decided to sign a contract with the government and let asylum seekers be there, live there. And this is not the myth. This is not something that did happen, but very little coverage of that, or almost none in the news, is that every Friday before Corona, there was a wedding. And every single asylum seeker, person of color, was put on a bus organized by this owner of Tracy's Hotel in Carrickmacross in County Monaghan, and shipped, transported all the way to this place, which is Hotel Rosslare. So their bodies, their presence will not disturb the wedding. So they would go to Hotel Rosslare from Friday, Saturday, and be back on Sunday night. We're talking about men, women, and children. And if anybody tells me that Ireland is not racist, let us not forget the most appalling racist attacks, arson attacks, physical attacks that happened relatively recently. And if we talk about the United States and saying, oh, well, it's all there and it's nothing here, then we are wrong again. This is Mobile in Donegal that was to become a home for asylum seekers before they were to come there. Someone or few people did throw, burned the building And this was the moment when I was there with, and I hope I'll have time to mention MASI, which is a movement of asylum seekers in Ireland, probably the most, not probably the most important platform in the grassroots movement that ever happened in the history of direct provision. And I was here with my dear comrade Lucky Kambule from MASI, that only 10 hours or 15 hours after an attack happened. And talking about COVID, talking about what I tried to say about Asylum Archive, that 14 years really is a long time, and is kind of I think I've done most of the work I could have done when it comes to Asylum Archive, and there are a few places that I would still like to visit and to document, but it's more or less everything there. Everything is documented. And if you ask me, is this art? I will say maybe it is not art. Is this activism? Yes, it is activism. Is it artivism? No, I don't think it's artivism. I don't like that word. What it is really is an artifact or artifacts. It's a document of the most appalling treatment by this state towards people who came to our white shores, European shores, to seek international protection. And this photograph we're looking at is something that I would really like to work on in the near future. And I never really owned Asylum Archive, and it's I did initiate it. I took most of the photographs. I still I'm the main curator, but I really would like to even more let go of it and let people like this person who sent this photograph maybe take to continue with Asylum Archive. And that's what I'm saying, that the collaboration or the collaborative aspect of Asylum Archive is crucial. The only difference, I would say, regardless of me being practicing artist for the last 25 years, is perhaps the only difference is the quality of the photographs. So this photograph was taken by the phone, and my photograph was taken by the camera, okay, digital camera. Okay, so the only difference is that my photograph can go bigger in the size if we ever decide, if we ever get funding to print it in the wide cube context, although it's absolutely as brilliant as any other work can be. And the very important thing about this work, very important thing is as Stuart Hall was saying, it's a living archive, it's an open-end archive that let other people, let everybody who have experienced this brutal, unforgiving system take part. Let us do it together. And the most important thing is that this is our archive. They do not own the archive. So these photographs that I'm going to show now are from single men recently closed direct provision center in Mount Trenchard. And these photographs have been contributed to Asylum Archive. As you can imagine, it's extremely difficult, hard, impossible to gain an access to any of these centers. And why would you? Why would you gain an access to these centers? My photograph of, for example, this, what you can see here, cannot be any better than what this person have photographed at that time. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's valuable. It's so, so, so important. And if you go to asylumarchive.com and if you go to the contributory aspect, you will see many, many more examples of people contributing their work. So as I kind of move forward, Asylum Archive is my lifelong project. I will still work on it in the best of my capacity, but I really would like to have others being more involved in continuation of creation. That document, that artifact, perhaps not art, definitely not art as being suggested or being gate-kept by the decision makers in this country, as it's still too political or too radical, and I still get the questions: where are the people? Where are their nobodies, etc., etc., etc. And it's not really for them, you know. It's not for the arts establishment. It's for the survivors. It's for the survivors of this brutal system, but it's also a legacy of something, and it is different to mother and baby homes, industrial schools, because now we have we will maybe in the time to come, when we have a report about direct provision abuses, we'll have many photographs that can contribute to that. But that document, and again, I'm just saying, we don't need another apology in 10, 15, 20 years time. No, it's too late for any apologies. I don't like apologies. Apologies are okay, maybe by some. For me, doesn't mean anything. What it means for me and many, many other comrades is we need to act. We need to do everything what we can to abolish the system of direct provision in the quickest possible time, so people do not suffer anymore. What do I do then? How do I continue? That was always my my question, or my research question, is that I decided to apply the same visual methodology as per Asylum Archive and to move to Europe, because we cannot blame Ireland only for this. This is the European Union, this is the world, this is our neoliberal, capitalist, awful state of affairs, if you like. If we look at direct provision, saying this is bad, it is bad, it is bad, but it is all over the place. So I was very lucky with a comrade of mine, Alan Hall, to go to Greece, in Athens, at just the beginning of pandemic. And to take part in the academic conference. And then I brought my camera and started to work with refugee-ness, or the positionality of asylum seekers in Greece. So this is one of the closed squats where people used to live. I don't know how I'm doing with the time now, just a second. Okay. And this work is another work. It is called Fortress Europe, because I think that's the main problem. I think that's the key. Is the fortress, is the Europe, right? It's the borders, and we can talk and sit and have conversations as long as we want, until the borders are dismantled, until border Europe or Fortress Europe is gone. There's nothing much we can do. The borders need to disappear. We have to open the borders and let everybody in. And this is my final statement on this issue. How is that going to manifest? What we're going to have after we do that, we can talk about that later. But at the time, at the moment, we need to open the borders and let everybody, whether political, economic, climate, refugee, in. So this is Greece. This is the Avata camp. in just outside of Thessaloniki, where thousands of people are living in dire conditions, like as you can see, and again, the part of my work that was portrayed through Asylum Archive and now for Arts Europe is a memorialization or the historization of the struggle, the historization. So what you see here is Hellenic Conformer Airport, totally abandoned at the moment, this year in February. But this is the place where Syrian refugees have lived in that building. And I did go there and spent many hours there. And also, although the place was closed for many years, there's still bits and pieces, the traces that I found belonged mainly to children who lived in this place, as you can see. And when it comes to Dante's Hell, let's say, or Purgatory, when it comes to the total abandonment of anything human, we can talk about this place. Portorali, detention center, pre-removal center, outside of Athens, where people are waiting their fallen asylum seekers, their fallen refugees, their fallen humans. They're just waiting to be deported back into their country. And if you can see those windows there, that's where they live. As I heard, in extremely unhygienic, horrible, unacceptable conditions, just waiting for that knock on their door and saying their name, and the plane or the car to go to the airport, and the plane, etc., is almost ready or there. Following the work I've done in Greece only recently, and I came back there only a month ago, was a residency, thankfully, to Nora Hickey, the director of the Irish Cultural Centre in Paris, invited me to continue with my work. And again, if we are talking about, there's this subtle difference in the layers of trauma, right? But the trauma is there. If you think, where could this be? This is just outside of Paris, right? And we see the barbed wire there, okay? And we see that we have moved as a society, as Europe, very little from the Nazi camps, from the Holocaust. We have changed techniques. So maybe we don't have gas chambers anymore. Maybe we don't execute people as Ustasha did in Jasenovac, where my granny lived in the concentration camp when she was only 14. We have a different techniques of torture today. And they are as efficient as you may imagine. And the very recent new European Act on migration is deport as much as you can in the less possible time. And that is it. And this is not somewhere on Mars. This is Bobigny. This is another immigration detention center. And you can only imagine the conditions there. And this is Calais. This is Calais, or as it's called, jungle, demolished, abandoned, and now it's called the city of the barbed wire. Because if you go from one side of the Calais to the other side what you would see the most is this kind of landscape, and people don't live there anymore. There is one little camp of maybe 80-100 people there that still live under these conditions in 2020 Ireland. Sorry, Europe. Ireland, Europe, or this place in Marseille, called CADA. Again, you can see the size of this building. It stretches down to the whole street and further. Is enormous. Actually, it's closed now and it's waiting to become something else. But as I say, can we just try to kind of maybe pause for a second and listen, or maybe try to imagine, to listen to the voices of people living within that building? Have they ever been heard? And this is Paris as well. This was one of the biggest squats in Paris that again got closed and turned into a new development, and apparently it's going to become a place for refugees. And let us see how that will unpack. I just suspect something what we have here in terms of student accommodation, how funded that was by the state of Ireland, and how they came as mushrooms throughout the night, and how they're empty, and how much money has been put into renovating this place so acceptable refugees or acceptable asylum seekers can live in that building. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how it would look like. While I hear the stories that the squat was a very vibrant, beautiful place that was open to everybody. I think I will try to conclude soon. This is one of the signs after police did demolish the last camp in Paris, in Aubervilliers. People are still living there, not in camp beside at Saint Denis Canal, but they're living in small groups in the parks and on the streets, living, dying, eating on the streets. And this is one of the signs or the notes or the notices I have come across. Or this one, and this is the place where the camp was for the Syrian refugees, again being dismantled and demolished by French police. And there's nothing there. It's a bus terminal, as it was always, and it's only this buggy that was, I can only guess, chained by father or mother of a Syrian child, hoping that they will return back and take the buggy. And the buggy is there, and there is no child, and there's no parents, and we don't know where the child is. We just can hope that they're all safe and they're all okay. And one thing that I didn't talk much about today was about my artist approach, about my visual methodology, about my ethics that are maybe not everyone's approach, and it must not be. I'm never saying that this is the only approach, this is the only way to try to document what I'm trying to do, and that's the positionality of people seeking protection in Europe. All I can say that I do have after being in Ireland for 14 years plus, I have a huge problem with the visual arts establishment in Ireland in terms of working on the very sensitive issues and handling it. And it always comes to mind probably the worst example ever, and is the work of Richard Moss and his work in Congo that was shown in RHA, and then also part of Venice Biennale representing Ireland, representing Irish state at the Venice Biennale. It's supposed to be one of the most important fairs of visual art in Europe, if not in the world, doing some really dodgy, problematic, unethical moves and movements in creating that pinkiness, that beautiness of his photograph, undermining the people who lived at the time when he did the work in Congo, the villagers, intruding into their space with a huge camera without asking anyone for permission to do the work he did. And I'm Irish. Although I don't talk like Irish, although I don't look Irish, I'm naturalized Irish citizen, and I'm ashamed that Richard Moss was put out there as just one of the examples, but maybe that's not the biggest problem. The problem is the generations of the students and artists look at his work as a model for something that they would like to do. And it's wrong. And we cannot blame the students. We just have to look into why he was put forward, not only in Ireland, but also in the world, as his work continues and continues. And I will conclude with a hope. I will conclude with movement of asylum seekers in Ireland, made from survivors of direct provision and people still surviving direct provision. Beautiful, amazing grassroots movement, uncompromised in its essence, never even looking to apply for any funding to continue with their work. And this is a letterbox I found in Paris outside, and kind of reminded me so much of Massey, as you know. It's that fist, clenched fist, the yellow background. So there is a hope. There is a way forward. We need to keep a pressure on this state of Ireland to end direct provision, to abolish all deportations, and I would strongly suggest you follow Massey, that I'm happy to be part of. And Massey is also allies, people supporting it, etc. There is, follow them on Facebook, on Twitter. Look what we are doing. Look when this pandemic is over, for the protests, for the engagement, for the way forward, etc. And it's something that I would really like to possibly maybe conclude this conversation saying that we just have to work together. And if my work, Asylum Archive, and other people who contributed can actually do a very tiny thing in terms of moving towards a complete abolishment of direct provision and end of deportations, then my work of 14 years that has not being validated so much by the grants or the money, if you like, which is fine. I'll be very, very happy and proud. And this was the initial goal and initial imperative, and there's no pass around. Thank you very much.
Vukašin, thank you very much for that. That was absolutely compelling talk and compelling practice. And what we're going to do is open up the Q&A, and I'm going to jump in before everybody else. But I'm going to kind of return you to earlier on in the talk, and you talked about one of the first experiences of ending up in direct provision in Ireland, and you talked about being the first thing that happened was it was being racialized, and I'm wondering, could you unpack that a little bit, simply because later down the line, there was significant opposition to direct provision, but from a very nasty right-wing perspective. So I'm thinking in my head, is one connected to the other? And maybe one of the ways to help answer that is for you just simply to tell us about that experience of being racialized upon arrival.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think I'm not an expert on racism or racialization. I think we may need to perhaps ask Comrade Ronit Lentin. And one of the things I forgot to say, that the book I was writing with Ronit on direct provision is hopefully coming out soon. It's a theoretical book on it's called Disavowing Asylum, Ireland, Irish Industrial Complex. Sorry. Yeah. So because this is very, very sensitive issue, right? So we need to kind of know there are so many layers. None of us, when the far right fascists were in Ireland, were opposing the opening of direct provision, they did not oppose that because they were against direct provision as per se. They had many, many different reasons to do so. Okay, so this is very, very subtle thing. While we say indirect provision, we also say that we need to do our best how to accept those people in the meantime, right? Which is not ideal, which is not what is probably transparent. But while we are trying to end direct provision, we are really need to, in the best possible way, to accommodate those people in this country. And as we know, Ireland has done very little, not only through direct provision, but also program refugees, accepting other refugees from other countries, including Syria. When I say I was racialized in direct provision in Ballyhoney's, I mean, it means the structure of every single moment in your day, right, was racist. From the moment you wake up and you have a certain kind of a time between 7:30 and 8:30 is breakfast, and you have to sign in. You have to sign in a daily register to get 7 pieces of fruit. You have to sign in to get your medical card, and you have to sign in to get your 19 euros 10 a week at night, a week. And you cannot leave the center for more than 2 days, right? Unless you want to keep your bed, right? I mean, that's and we talk about racism, there are so many different layers of the racism, right? And the whole kind of notion about that we don't talk about that very often. It's not literally white skin, black skin anymore, right? Or it is still, of course, sorry, it's still there, but these are subtle, developed over the time ways of racializing someone or someone's identity or a human being.
Actually, I do have 3 questions, or like maybe 2 questions.
Lovely, thanks, Joanne.
I wonder, when do residents have the choice, or if they actually have the choice to leave the direct, do they have the choice, and when would they have it? And the other question is, do any of the residents who try to contribute on the website or on this project, or yourself, got into any troubles with any of the direct provisions or the government itself?
Okay, the first one is a kind of question that, yeah, everybody living in direct provision, as it was clarified by Leo Varadkar some time ago, is allowed to leave direct provision. Now that's a kind of propaganda talk, because of course you can leave direct provision, right? You don't have to live there. Okay, but now with 3880 per week, with an extremely limited amount of people being allowed to work in Ireland or being issued work permit, okay, it's and with the huge kind of cost of the rental market in Ireland, and particularly in the cities, it's impossible to leave direct provision, right? It's almost impossible. We know that, right? And we know that. So there are so many things that can have to happen before that, right? In order for people to be able to leave direct provision. One thing is, you can say you can leave direct provision, right? But where do you go? More than likely, like what's the case in the UK, you're going to end up homeless, right? At some point. Right. The second thing, I got in trouble many, many times while doing my work. Okay. And this is one of the things, I mean, I never was kind of penalized in a way that what we are thinking about, or the penal law in Ireland, maybe. But yeah, loads of intimidation, loads of bullying. Yeah, for the last 14 years on everyday basis, if you like. Right. So many layers there from management, from people working in the center saying, I'm not allowed to take the photos from the outside, totally not correct, to, or against the law, if you like, to people who have taken the photographs of their properties, that once were direct provision, but now they're hotels, and now they're B&Bs, and they're on my website, and they say, you have to take it down because this is not helping our business, this is ruining our business. And I say, like, well, I'm not taking it down, and that's it. So, and in terms of people contributing, most of people who did the work, they're anonymous, okay, as they really want to go with that, and it's just so kind of understandable, because we can only, I can only try to say to you how repressive that system is, and how people are being made afraid every single moment in their days, being threatened by, transfers or deportations, etc. So, yeah. Is that all? Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem. You're welcome.